and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten. It's just me tonight after a Game 2 performance where the Timberwolves lose by 38 points. A lot of record-setting performances by this one, by the Timberwolves, and unfortunately pretty much all of them were in the negative category. The 38-point loss is the most in Timberwolves playoff franchise history, so that's fun. Kind of similar stat to the fact that the Wolves are the only team that has not ever been swept in the playoffs. A lot of that is because of their low number of total playoff appearances, and I guess in this case, maybe a little more surprising that they haven't gotten blown out by 38. Maybe that's a sample size issue too, but just right from the jump, it's just bad. They turn the ball over on their first 3 possessions. They score 17 first quarter points, and they're just, I don't know. It felt like one of those performances that we've seen so many times throughout the season where they're just not ready to play. They were not ready to compete at the highest of levels. And obviously to a certain extent in the regular season, you live with those games or whatever, but and even the playoffs, even a blowout loss like this is not the end of the series. It's not the end of anything really other than game 2. But it's just, to me, it's more of a repeated pattern where the Wolves are just an inconsistent basketball team. They very seldom, really this season, many seasons beyond it, are able to just stack on quality performances on top of quality performances. And really when they bottom out, they bottom out. And obviously we've seen throughout these playoffs, on the flip side, when you think that they're ready to implode, they'll come up with their best performances. So I guess I would expect that moving forward as well. But I think tonight they just did not have the right mindset coming into the game. To me, it seemed like they came in with the mindset of, we already accomplished our goal. We won game 1. We're going to go back at worst, tied 1-1. We all would have taken that at the beginning of the series to split the first 2 games. And again, it doesn't mean that they got no shot moving forward, but you're an underdog in this series for a reason. The other team is very, very good. You're only going to have so much margin of error, and you punted off a large chunk of that here in game 2 when you just really never gave yourself a chance to win the game. To me, it's different than game 5 of the Denver series, where I think in some ways they were shell-shocked by the injuries in game 4, and they had to figure out what they even had on their roster. And obviously that was a poor performance, but it wasn't a mindset thing to me. I just think they didn't have the guns for that game. This game was just like the classic, and we've seen this so many times that who knows if they let the talking heads get into their play, but this team was praised kind of after game 1, after the Denver series, has been praised up and down for their play, and deservedly so. The first 7 games of this postseason have been awesome from the Timberwolves, and really a validation of everything this franchise and organization are building. But it's also, this game 2 is also kind of an affirmation of their darker side of what this team is. It reminded me of a lot of them in a lot of the games in the regular season. And Finch had the money quote during the Denver series that was they didn't take it seriously and they lied to us, and they had to come back. And so it's been a point of mine forever, is whatever this is, whatever this inconsistency, this inability to put out consistent performances when you're not the underdog, I just think that it's really their Achilles heel. That's to me and it doesn't mean they can't win the series, and it doesn't even mean that they're screwed. It just means it's something to me that they have to overcome. I think it's more likely that it's going to have to be overcome during the regular season, where they're going to have to find in the regular season a consistent game in, game out, some call it identity, or just a string of performances that that you can bank on at every moment. There's going to be highs and lows in every postseason, but to me, the best way to be able to overcome all of that is during the regular season, is just to have this habits of, doesn't matter what anything else is going on, that you perform the same way, or at least within a single standard deviation of how you play every single night. And this team just flies off the handle, good and bad, so often. And I don't know. Maybe it's possible. Maybe I'm asking them to bottle up the extreme good performances. Maybe that's just not possible, and that's something else we have to reconcile with. Is like this is just who this team is. Whatever, like the median or the halfway point between their awesome and poor performances. And that, however that team is, has been good enough to get them to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They have a chance to get to a fairly solid chance to get back to a third one in a row. At the very least, they've won playoff series in 3 straight years. Like, so this team is very, very good. It's a game, the type of game I wish they had taken more seriously. And credit to the Spurs, who played awesome. So honestly, I don't think the Wolves are winning this game, even with with a really, really good performance. The Spurs were just fantastic in this game. And that kind of goes back to my margin of error point that if San Antonio keeps playing like this, like the Wolves are gonna have a tough time winning the series. So I guess I just wish that they had come out with the same mindset they came out with in game one. I tweeted out something that was like pointing out like the zero sum nature of like this isn't actually how it works, but like in theory, like the playoff series is zero sum. So if the other team is desperate to tie the series up, you in theory should be just as desperate to win the game and bury them, because it's going to end up with one team is going to end up with 100% of the series win, and the other team is going to end up with 0% of the series win. But obviously that's easier said than done, and the Wolves I just felt like, even beyond the schematic points of the game, I just thought never gave themselves a chance to win this game from the way they entered the game, which is a bummer. But I also, all of that said, I don't think that they are out of the series or out of whatever ceiling that they can hit. I mean, I think everyone remembers last year, Game 3, the Wolves blew out the Thunder. They were up 50 at one point, and they end up winning the game by 40, and the Thunder end up winning the last 2 games of the series and the title. So it is, for this series, it is just one game. I also think it brings up kind of larger, bigger picture questions with this team. But yeah, it's not going to be a long podcast. I'll admit that right now. Other than that, I don't think Finch said they got punked after the game. I hard to disagree with that. So to me, there's not much more to break down in that sense, because I think Game 3 and Game 4 will be very telling. If the Wolves, almost regardless of outcome, if the Wolves come back and it looks a lot more like Game 1, then I think we're series on. Wolves have had a puncher's chance of winning the series, and if Game 3 looks kind of more similar to what this one looked like, it's gonna be an uphill climb. But yeah, let's kind of go player by player. I think this place to start is with Anthony Edwards, who just, look, it's really hard to criticize Ant because he shouldn't really even be playing in these games, and it's kind of a little bit of a bummer that he plays 24 minutes in this game. I think they could have limited his minutes even further, given that early in the third quarter the game was over. But ultimately they have far more information about his health than I do. But he was just incredibly poor in this game. Offensively, just the shot selection was bad. The lift on his shot just didn't seem to be there. He finishes with a team high 12 points, which the fact that no one scored more than 12 is pretty rough. Wolves had 5 players in double figures, including Randall, Jaden, Shannon, Nas, and Ant. But 5 of 13 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3, 4 turnovers in this game. Just thought when he came into the game, kind of the offense was already not functioning properly, with no ball movement, terrible shot selection, turnovers abound. But then Ant comes in and just he grinds to a halt even more. And that's probably the bigger thing, is like they've had great ball movement basically the entire Denver series, aside from at least in the four games they won. And in Game 1, it was really good too. And then all dried up. And even beyond like the mental side of it that I talked about, to me, that's as big of a thing, is like they do so many times they just revert back to this iso ball mentality. And to me, that's the biggest thing that like needs to get hammered home in a regular season is like, here's the offense we run, and we run it consistently so that we don't hit these stretches so often of just no ball movement. But Ant was just, and especially was a big culprit in that. He finishes with a negative minus 33 team high. Just not good enough from him. And obviously he has a completely legitimate excuse about his knee, so it's hard to really crush him. But on the flip side, if he's going to be out there, they can't get this type of performance from him. And I'm almost certain that he either did or would admit the same thing. So I thought physically he looked slightly worse than game one. So that's kind of another data point that if this is the level we're going to get from Ant this entire series, the Wolves are going to have a gigantic uphill climb for this series. But if he can, with the smaller minute load tonight, if he can slowly kind of get back healthier and look better and get closer to 75, 80, 90% as the series goes on, then again, Wolves are in an okay spot to win the series. But yeah, it's hard to, if he's going to be out there, like they just need him to be better than this. Because like he just was not very good in this game. Julius Randle, they're going to need Julius Randle to play a lot better than he did in the first two games too. Late in the fourth quarter of game one, he was awesome, and pretty much at every other spot in this series, he's been really, really bad. There's a lot of, the Spurs were getting out and running pretty much at every opportunity, and Julius was just not getting back at so many points in this game. Probably others were doing it too. Ant noticed it from him too. So that's kind of, again, when the Wolves look bad, this is what it looks like. Ant and Julius aren't getting back in transition, but Randall, one of the four people with 12 points, 4 of 10, leads the team in 5 turnovers. The other guy with turnovers was Rudy, 4 points. Just didn't have the defensive output that he had in the first game, or certainly the Denver series. But yeah, I mean, just looking at it, the Wolves shot 40% from the floor, 30% from three, 52% from the free throw line, and had a whopping 22 turnovers, while the Spurs lived in the paint offensively on their side. Like, they just got whooped. That's kind of all there is to say. The Wolves just got absolutely blasted in this game. Not a single area of the game went well. Jaden McDaniels probably had the quote-unquote best game, 12.6 of 10 shooting, but also ends up playing 20 minutes. Obviously, part of that's the game gets out of hand, but picks up 3 fouls in the first half again, and just the Wolves don't have without Dante, the Wolves just don't have the depth behind him to really sustain that, or just the quality of player behind him. Like, Jaden's as important of player on this roster as anyone. Should note that Ayo Dosunmu didn't play in the second half. He had let's see if I can look up the injury report here to get the exact verbiage, but I think it's he has some heel soreness that prevents him from coming back into the game. I would guess, or it's maybe he plays in the second half if the game is close. Right heel pain is why he missed the second half officially. Who knows if he plays in the second half if the game is close. I don't know if he ever gets ruled out. Yes, he does get ruled out in the middle of the third quarter. Who knows if the score of the game at that point it affected it, but something to monitor with Ayo. It's technically on the injury report a different injury than he missed game one and the last game of the Denver series with. So hopefully he's able to go game 3. But I guess this injury casts a little bit of doubt on that, and I would assume that he will be questionable heading into game 3. But yeah, Wolves get absolutely trounced by 38 points in San Antonio. Like Finch said, they got punked. I guess go read my recap of this one. Elaborated on some more of my thoughts about this game. But yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap up this podcast, because ultimately it's one of those things where I don't think there's a whole lot more to break down. Wemby and Fox were a lot better in this game. Wemby especially had a bunch of crazy dunks, finishes with 19 points and 15 rebounds. Fox, 16 points on 10 shots. Stephon Castle leads them with 21 points. Just a much better outing from there. Julian Champagny hits some threes instead of missing the last one of the game, 4 of 6. So yeah, we'll Spurs respond. Wolves get blitzed. That's the answer. That's what happened in game 2, and we'll see if this is the turning point in the series where the Spurs take hold and don't give it back, or if it's a momentary blip. I mean, my prediction is that it's somewhere in between, and I would just purely guess that we see a split in the Minnesota games in games 3 and 4, and we're headed to a dogfight of the series down the stretch from there. But I guess we'll see. And the one thing we'll know is that Target Center is going to be an outstanding crowd on on Mother's Day is game 4 on Sunday, and on Friday is what I meant to say for game 3. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this Game 2 solo recap pod. I'll be back following Game 3 in some form or fashion. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Go Wolves.
Ayoo!